Thank you, Jonathan. Glad to be here with everyone. And I want to first say that Zoom has had a couple of updates since I put this together. I put this together at like a version 12.9 or something, and there's since then version 13, and then just earlier this week 13.4 came out. So I think all my settings are still the same, but if you're running a later version and see something slightly different, that might be part of it. All right, let me see if I can get my screen shared here. And so I can bounce back and forth with settings. I'm just going to do the whole desktop, and that way I can get to all that I need. And let's see, Keynote. And let's just grab that out of the way.
Mike, could I ask you a question?
If you can do it quickly.
I noticed you started with the desktop. You started with us instead of starting with because I have to do this for Tai Chi, but I just go straight to my screen. I don't know if that makes sense or not. You started with showing us all the pictures of us. Is that the best way to do it?
Not necessarily. It just depends on your situation. Doing the desktop because I want to jump back and forth between live Zoom settings and the presentation.
Okay, thanks very much.
All right, let me go through here. If you need to update your client or just get another machine and are getting the new client on, then you can go to zoom.us/download and then just select the item you want. Mainly, it's probably going to be this one right here, Zoom client. That'll get downloaded into your downloads folder, provided you're using the default. You can just double click on that, start it up, and it'll get the application installed for you. Once installed and you start it up, this basically will be the screen you'll see initially. If you have a Zoom client, then go ahead and sign in. If you don't have a client, I'd really suggest that you create one at Zoom. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full view and utilization of the application. You can see here, if you don't have a client, just click on sign up, and it'll take you right to the Zoom page for that. Client, generally based on your.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes, you're going to create
I can't hear anything.
Jim, we're not taking questions now.
You create a client and just go through from there, then get signed in. And the sign in basically is the password that you create in Zoom along with your email. It's completely free and no charge at all. I'd recommend using the password that you set at Zoom rather than trying to go through one of these items down here. That just gets you perhaps a bit too intermingled, the Zoom client with other applications. Once you're logged in, you will get this default landscape view, and you can go to the settings of the client by clicking on the little sprocket that's right here, and that'll bring up a whole world of applications and clients. Generally, you start out with this screen. I like to have all my controls continually shown. If you don't have that checked, then you would see that if your mouse moves away from the Zoom window, then the controls down at the bottom will disappear. You'd have to bring the mouse back to the Zoom window to get them viewed back. You're also going to, if you want Zoom to start up in full screen, you can have it check here. If you're using more than one monitor, as I generally do, putting a check in here can be useful in letting Zoom control how you have different items showing up different windows. One monitor will be the Zoom meeting that you're on. The other monitor may have a window of whoever the active speaker is, for example, which is one way that Zoom controls that. If you, a lot of these items you check are just personal preference. Some of them I'll get into have a better functionality for you to help control things. Also, if you use a Windows PC, some of these will look a little bit different, not a lot, but you may see a little bit of difference. I developed this and use Zoom when I'm home on my MacBook. So what I have should be the same as what you have. You may be using a different version of Zoom. If that's the case, then I really recommend to that you upgrade the client and keep it up to date. Let's see. One thing in each of these categories here on the left, there can be multiple pages. You can see here, this is the second page of the general settings. Zoom is developing all kinds of applications to be used within Zoom. They're even setting up their own mail system and will give you the ability to create another mail account if you really want. Most of us have too many already, so that may be something else. But Zoom even has a phone system that they can sell you to work through Zoom. So that's a number of things. Some of the other items you can select the skin tone for your non-verbal indicators. You want to be careful in doing this, depending upon how you set that, what backgrounds you may use. You may not be able to see the icons that you put up, especially if you use the raise hand feature, for example. Putting a check down here allows you to have your emojis activated based on your hand signal. If you hold up your hand, Zoom will do the raise hand feature. The other item here is if you're using an emoji of different sorts, that will also show at the toolbar that you have, just to let you know that you have that on. In the video category, there are a number of components that you can have and that you can use. If you have more than one camera, you can do the drop down here and select which camera is going to be the active camera that Zoom uses. I'd recommend leaving HD off. That's going to provide better utilization of bandwidth. I think a lot of us don't have a really super high speed gigabit network, and especially if you're working wirelessly, you might want to keep your bandwidth more at a minimum. This original ratio relates to if you're using a background, that background is going to be displayed in the size and format that it is originally. Otherwise, keeping a check out of there, that allows the screen background to be stretched across your full screen. So that can be helpful for you. The Mirror My Video actually flips your image horizontally a full so that it's as though you're looking into a mirror. I'd recommend keeping that touch up my appearance off, partly because if you have it on and then stretch it all the way out, it makes you look kind of dull-like. Your features are really glossed over with a sheen, and it doesn't really appear normal. So I'd say keep that off. Always display a participant name. That's where you get the names down the lower corner of their window. Keeping that check in there shows their names in there. And if you're joining a meeting, you can say that, okay, your video is going to be muted by putting a check there. Excuse me. Let's see. Let's go to, you can see a number of items here. Hide non-video participants. If people are coming in with their cameras not enabled, putting a check in that box means that you will not see them in your gallery view until they actually turn on the video. Then they'll show up there. Hide the self view basically is that view, and with a check there, I would be hidden to myself. I would not bother to see me. Excuse me. This bottom one here, maximum participants, with older versions of Zoom and with older systems, they did not have the video RAM or GPU, graphical processing unit, in order to be able to handle a number of participants at one time. Most of us now have systems where we can view up to 49 people on the screen, 49 different squares. So, that can be, a help in seeing as many as you'd like. Excuse me. If you have a little question mark that shows up beside an item, you can rest your mouse on that question mark and you'll get this little window showing up. And it'll give you more of a description of just what the item actually is. Where I clicked on advanced, I get this little window here that comes up, and that will show up in a number of the categories too. You'll see that showing there. Pardon me, a tickle. In the audio settings, I'm often, especially when I'm working, I'm wearing a headset with a microphone attached. I can get to that by this drop down here, and if you can switch between the built-in microphone on your device, which often is not as capable as what you have built into a headset. Uh, so you can do that, the drop down, and select between devices. By clicking on test speaker, some tones will come on and they'll show up uh, depending upon the volume level in this little indicator. And then you can use this volume level to adjust that. For microphone, same thing. You can do the drop down, select a different microphone, and then by clicking on test microphone, you can do some speaking and see indicators going across. And this is where you can control your microphone. I also would recommend do not have Zoom automatically adjust the volume. It's not necessarily the most accurate in the world. So I'd say keep that off. Now, original sound for musicians, if you're dealing with a situation where you're playing an instrument of some sort, you would want to have that checked in order that Zoom will not process the audio in a way that it thinks it should be handled, because Zoom on itself does not recognize instruments or music as well. There are a number of third-party extensions that you can build into Zoom if you're going to be doing anything musically. So, you might want to see those. If you are doing that, then definitely put a check in high fidelity music mode and a check in echo cancellation. If you don't have that check in echo cancellation, then you have the potential of a fair amount of feedback coming back to you. Excuse me. This is second half of the pages of the audio, and these again are more preference. You can tell Zoom to keep yourself muted when you immediately join, and to have Zoom automatically set up the type of instrument that you're using for your audio. You can also tell Zoom that to not bother to prompt you. And let's see. I'm running through these kind of quickly because of the just to make sure we get done at 2 for Rob Peguero to come in. If you're sharing screen, you have a number of controls that you can set up for default. You can always override those by controlling settings once you're in the share screen mode. But to set up a default view, this is a good idea to have these controls set however you like. The side-by-side mode gives you the people being viewed on the right-hand side of whatever is actually being shared in the main body of your Zoom window. And generally, the side-by-side is good for utilizing full utilization of your screen. Then let's see. If you're going to share multiple applications, or if you're going to share, say you have a number of different documents, go back here. If you have a number of different documents that you're sharing, you can tell Zoom that you want to be able to see all those documents, and but only the Word documents that you have, and not spreadsheets or not your whole desktop. So this is one way that you can control that. let's see, when I share. And uh, if you have this set, automatically share desktop, when you click on share a screen, you don't get the second window that gives you the option to to choose what you want to share. Zoom will automatically go right into your desktop. And if you're not in a Zoom room, which most of us generally are not, that's a separate application and configuration that Zoom has, where if you're in a group, you're just going into a particular room. Let's see. And second page of share screen. This one is kind of nice, especially if you have a number of windows visible. The green border helps you tell which particular component you're actually sharing at a given time, especially if you're going back and forth between other components. If you have kind of a wonky connection, you may have to tell Zoom to use your TCP connection versus Zoom's default protocol. Generally, I would say just leave that alone unless you're having problems in actually getting connected. I'm skipping over the team chat in Zoom apps simply because they're kind of a separate area that most of us don't get into from a really advanced standpoint. But the background and effects is one area that a lot of us like to use. I've marked out a number of items here that are kind of give you some utilization of different controls. The first one here in the upper right corner allows you to flip your window of your video 90 degrees. Each time you click on that, the window is going to turn another 90 degrees until you go the full 360. And that can be handy if you're just setting up a different view of your camera. The virtual backgrounds generally are these items down here. Now, if you're logged into Zoom, you're going to see this and get more control out of it than if you just join a meeting without actually being logged into Zoom. In this plus sign, I have the option of actually loading up my own personal JPEG files or short MPEG files. You can see I have this Northern Lights background, and because of this little camera icon in the lower left corner of these items, you know that those are short videos that actually run in the background, and you can add your own as you like. You see this Ollie one is one that I use at work that we have set up as a background. Generally, I'm using either this one or the blurred background, just so items behind me aren't distracting. If you click on video filters or avatars, you see a number of items that come up. Let's see if I can show a little bit of that. And you can see on video filters, I can add in a number of items that kind of, cutesy the look a little bit. The avatars, you may have heard of the individual, the lawyer in a court case showing up as a cat, something that his daughter did. Well, if I click on one item there, you can see, okay, now I'm a cat. Or I could be a cow, just depending upon how I want to turn it off. But these are other components that can come in handy. There are, let's see, some of this has changed since I was doing it last. But there are other controls that you can get into to control the look of how you appear. And this check with a green screen, excuse me, if you use a green screen, that helps your PC distinguish you from the background. It can say, okay, that green screen is meant to be blank, or presenting a blank background. And then it works better with any of these that you may select. And the mirror in my video is similar to the other mirror that I mentioned about. Let's see. And the accessibility area, you can see how I'm skipping through a number of these other items. Recording, if you're recording, you get a number of options. As far as recording to Zoom's cloud, especially if you have a paid account, you can. Or if you're recording locally, where do you want those recordings to show up, where they're displayed? The other part here is the closed captioning. You can control the size of the captioning that you see at the bottom of your screen, and how that's going to look. How small or large you'd like that to show up. The other items down through here are meant more for people with various restrictions on being able to view. So you can control that. Oh, sorry, I lost my. Let's get back to the play. There we are. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me stop my share and look at the chat and see what we have. Okay. Ginger is asking, what's the problem with intermingling with other applications? It's more from the sign-in standpoint. If I sign into Zoom, I want to be working strictly with Zoom from that standpoint. I don't necessarily want to have Zoom linked with my Google profile and all of the apps that I use within Google. I want to have my Zoom ID strictly at Zoom. That's my concern. It may not be for, yours, so that's fine. Let's see. Martha stating about Facebook. If you're going through Facebook, then you're limited there with being able to get to other applications that you may be using Facebook for the sign-in. Let's see. And okay. Oh, okay. Jonathan's putting in a reference to Zoom. The other thing too, Zoom has a wealth of help pages and information that you can get on uh, various components. Let me see if I can just go to there and show some of this. Yeah. Okay. Now let me go back and I'll share my browser here. And you can see here, oh, I got too much here on my screen. Let me see if I can hide a bunch of stuff. Yeah, okay. There's a support part of Zoom where if you just click on that support, then you're going to come up here and you're going to get a big search window. You can type in any question that you have on something and generally be able to get all kinds of information on just what that is, how to control it, how to use it. And I've found it very helpful on a number of different areas. Okay, let me stop that share and let's see. Okay, yeah, there. Seeing an app or an apps icon. That's where Zoom has added in all kinds of added components that they want to link with Zoom. Jonathan, you have a question?
Actually, it was on that very thing. I was going to ask you, what, if any, of these apps do you think the Pi might want to use, would be useful for us?
There are a number of things related to recording that you might want to take a look at, and how you manage your recordings, where you store them. I think there's some related to editing as well, so you can do that. Otherwise, I'm not completely sure. I've not gone into the apps really that much. At one point, we were looking at work, we were looking into having a sort of a robotic receptionist and linking with these apps. But the complexity of that and configuration, just decided that was a bit too much for us. But I know that calendar, for example, there are many apps related to calendar management and through Zoom that could be of benefit to you.
I think for these days, we're pretty much okay with using the groups.io calendar.
Right,
It seems to work okay for us.
Yeah, I know that's one thing that Zoom has been pushing very strongly, excuse me, is getting themselves added into more systems. The thing with phone systems, how you can get your, used to be you had to buy a PBX system from some company, and it was a very closed system. Well, everyone's selling VoIP, voice over internet protocol phone systems, and Zoom is one of them doing that. I don't know how well they're doing with that, how far it's going. You can see the little avatar thing, emoji, because I had my hand up. it added it there. Let's see if it's going to do it. Yep, there it is. So you can see how you can, if I raise my hand, that should change to, that changes to a raise hand. So you can see how that shows. Let me bring that down. One thing.
That one can be pretty funny, Mike, when everybody is waving goodbye and all the hands go up.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you're not seeing your hand showing up, that may be because you don't have that setting set in your settings. So that's one thing you can take a look at. One nice thing about the if you're managing your Zoom meeting or a Zoom meeting, and you use the participants panel, excuse me, the participants panel will show the raise hands in the order of the people raising them. Trying to view the raise hands on the gallery view of little tiles, those are not necessarily in the order that of the hands being raised. So if you want to catch people in that order, you really need to use the participants panel for that. The participants panel is the same thing with sorting people who are muted versus unmuted, also, for example. And it will also put at the top in generally the what do I want to think, the people who are hosting and co-hosts, they are at the top as well. Let's see, there are a couple of others in the oh, that was the wrong chat. Okay.
Joe had a question about, Joe, why don't you ask your question?
Well, I have two questions. The first one is, I don't quite understand the point of the client unless I'm running a meeting, a session, and if I create a client and want some of the tools, are they available to me if I'm not running a session? And does it initiate if I just click Jonathan's join meeting link? And let me just ask my other question that I put into chat. If you could talk a little bit about Teams. I'm looking for a tool. I'm part of a group that has tickets to watch the Nationals lose baseball games, and we're trying to figure out some better function for dividing the tickets without all of us being in the same room, because the scheduling is just brutal, and I'm wondering whether the Teams thing might work for that.
I don't know about the Teams. I know you can get a free copy of Microsoft Teams, and I've heard people using that for great success.
We've tried that. It didn't work very well, so I'm looking for something different.
Okay. I don't know if the Zoom Teams are going to give you anything more from that. That's such a, to some extent, a little bit of a unique utilization or component. So yeah, I'm afraid I couldn't say on that. The other part with the client, I'm using the very same client of Zoom, provided it's the same version as you're using as just a member attending, provided you're going into the meeting from the client. If you have the client installed, excuse me, and you click on the link for a meeting, a URL, you are, depending upon how Jonathan and Roy set up the meeting, you can either join the meeting from your client, or you can join the meeting from a web browser. Now, if you join from a web browser, you're not going to get the same functionality as the client installed. If you join from the client installed but are not logged into Zoom, then you, again, also may not get the same functionality.
Yeah, if I could just clarify for a moment, maybe a follow-on session for you, Mike, would be looking at all of the meeting settings for someone who actually is going to run the meeting, because there's a whole separate layer of that stuff.
Right. Well, on the Zoom.us for managing the meetings, yeah, page after page after page.
Of settings, yes.
So,
And some of them, the defaults make sense. In others, the default doesn't make sense, and you only discover that when something doesn't work.
Right.
So to clarify, if I get Jonathan's link, for example, I need to be logged into Zoom, and I need to use maybe the meeting number and not the join Zoom link to go into the client. I mean, it sounds like I have like a 3-step rather than a 1-step thing.
Well, it's joining from the URL. It's more a 2-step, but the other part too is that Zoom allows you to stay logged in even if the client is not running for a given period of time, so that if you don't have the client up and running from Zoom standpoint on their website, you may in fact still be logged in.
Okay, and thank you. And finally, can I run the client on an iPad or a phone, or is it strictly a desktop version?
No, there are both iPhone and iPad clients that you can run. You get them right from the Apple Store, App Store, and download them. They're the controls aren't always in the same place as they are on the desktop client, and there some controls aren't there at all. But for the most part, they're very, very similar.
And the
Yeah,
client
but
is
that, as excuse me, Joe. Yeah, Rich pointed out in the chat that I think it's still the case, isn't it, Mike, that you can't save the chat if you're running the iPad client.
True. Yeah.
And that seems to be, I assume that was from the days when Steve Jobs was still alive and the Files app didn't exist. And they haven't rethought it since then.
I'm not sure how long that's been around. I'm not sure Zoom has been around that long.
and is the client different than the app that I have on my desktop and my iPad?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
I have a Zoom app on my desktop and on my iPad. Is
Yeah,
That's
the
what
same
Mike
as
is
the
talking
client?
about.
Okay,
Yes.
so I've already got those tools.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Sorry for it. Just I sort of missed the point of having the client. So I appreciate you articulating that.
Oh, yes, sir, certainly.
Oh, and the last thing, Joe, so this is something that I think Pine members have learned. But just to clarify, there are 2 ways if you have the app on your Mac or on an iPad that you can join the meeting, either by putting in the meeting ID and the password, or by in the browser on the device, on whatever device, visiting the link, which usually will prompt opening of the app.
Yeah. Now, from my standpoint, it's okay from the user. It's more efficient to just click on the link and go. From the device standpoint, it's more efficient to use the uh, meeting ID and passcode because you're only opening Zoom and you're not opening a browser tab as well as Zoom. So if you're looking at saving resources, granted it's minimal, but if you're looking at saving resources on your device, then use the meeting ID and passcode. Van, you have your hand up for a bit. Do you have a comment?
Oh, I took it back down. I think part of the confusion, Mike, was that early on, you talked about establishing a client, and in my words, that would have been a Zoom account.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's what you meant when you were talking about establishing a client. You meant establishing a Zoom account, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Thank you.
Oh, Mike, one question I had about the recordings that I hadn't actually seen before, and I wondered what your default is for that. But I only just noticed when you were going through it that one of them is display participants' names in the recording. So there is a way to save a recording that doesn't have the participants' names,
Yes.
on their faces.
Yes. Very true.
So under what conditions would you use that, or wouldn't you?
Well, for example, if we have a class, most everyone knows the instructor. There's not a need to have the instructor's name always there and taking up part of the screen. We have at the beginning of the recording, we add in a title tile that also has the instructor's name on it as well. So that would be why we would not want to keep the name there.
Thanks for that.
Also, I think it's a long-term privacy concerns as well.
Well, actually, is that the same thing as, I thought there was another setting that didn't show the participants at all, not their faces or their names.
Well, that's where if in the client settings, you can check to hide non-video participants.
No, I mean hiding video participants in the
Okay.
recording.
I'm not.
Would that be in the management settings rather than the client settings? Possibly, huh?
Yeah, I don't think it's in the client settings.
Yeah.
You sure you weren't on a webinar? Seems like those are all that way.
Well, a webinar, your video is not going to be seen at all. Only host, co-host, and panelist will have their videos shown if they opt to have it turned on. Regular attendees are not seen or heard, for that matter. A host or co-host actually has to give permission to an attendee to be able to speak in a webinar.
Ginger, I saw your post in the chat, and let's quickly talk about that.
Well, I'm not sure you didn't already go over it, but my husband has the Zoom account. We share it.
Right.
So he has it on a PC. I pull it over onto Apple. It seems to work fine. But
Sure.
when I sign in to somebody else's Zoom, obviously I'm not getting the same control that I would get when I sign up for a Zoom and other people come into my Zoom. So is that the ID and passcode I need to sign in with? Is that the point, or
Well,
if you sent me a Zoom link, I'd like to have as much control as possible over that Zoom too.
okay, if you're joining a meeting as an attendee, you're not going to have the same controls as if you create a meeting and manage that meeting as the host. Your ability to do different things as a host is greater than as just a regular attendee.
Okay, there's nothing you can do about that.
Right. Yeah, that's just the limitation of you attending a meeting versus managing a meeting.
So
But Ginger, oh, go ahead.
what is this better to sign in with a passcode and an ID then?
Well, for example, if you run the Zoom client but are not signed in, and you want to set up a number of different features related to your background or special effects or something, you may not see that if you're not signed in. Other controls are that way also. I'm not sure exactly out the top of my head just which particular ones, but I know a lot of that related to the video settings you would not see if you're not signed in to the client and at zoom.us.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought
Mike,
Ginger, you were
Mike.
saying that you have one Zoom account, and you wanted to know how you could use that most effectively, because I think you're doing that. If you're on your husband's Zoom account now, but you use the rename feature to have your name appear. And this is something that actually we've done when my wife attends a Zoom meeting, because it's my account. She knows how to just rename herself, so she shows up.
Yeah, I do that automatically. I didn't know if there was some better way we should be managing between us ourselves.
If you're both using the same account, that's just something that one of you will have to do is, just do that rename as you're doing now.
Okay.
Mike, are you talking about signing into a person's individual Zoom account, or are you talking about that person logging into a Zoom meeting?
Not logging into a Zoom meeting, but actually making sure that they are signed into Zoom itself.
Okay, then I think something you just said is wrong, because I routinely do not log into my Zoom account, even though I have one, but I do log into meetings routinely. And I don't think there are any differences, or very few, if any, in the things that I can see on the Mac Zoom client in the preferences, whether I'm logged in or not. For example, all the video stuff I think is the same. Can you give me an example of something that I don't see because I'm not logged in?
Well, you may not see if you're on the video on the backgrounds. For example, you may not be able to add a new JPEG to that list.
No, under settings and background and effects, there's a plus sign, and I can add anything I want. It goes to a chooser screen that allows me to pick a file, and I'm not logged in right now. Except
Right, but Bruce, the main point is that any of the backgrounds you saved won't show up. You won't see them.
Okay, how is it?
That may be, I don't know, but there may be some things,
That-
but
that
I
is-
haven't
that
noticed
is-
any drastic difference.
How is it?
I don't think there's a lot of differences. Mike was saying that you need to be logged in order to make some of the adjustments. I don't think that's true.
Well,
Because
It
most
is,
of the video and audio settings I see are there whether you're logged in or not, I believe.
how do you know that you're not logged in?
How do I know I'm not logged in? Because I didn't log in.
You
When I
may,
look in the zoom.us application menu on my Mac, down near the bottom, just above where it says quit Zoom, it says sign in. If I was signed in, it would say sign out. But it says sign in, so I'm not logged into Zoom or to a Zoom account. I'm only logged into this meeting.
Yeah, can we, I think the main point about this is that if you've saved any settings of how the meeting will run in your Zoom account, if you join a meeting in the app without being signed in, you won't see those. So
That
for
could be
example,
because,
Bruce, this
that could be
Pi ALSIG background that I have is because I've saved that in my Zoom account. If
right,
I was not logged in,
very well
I
be.
wouldn't see it. Yeah.
Yes, that could very well be, because when you're logged in to your Zoom account and you save something, it may save it to your account on their server. And if you're not logged in on a future Zoom meeting, you're not going to have access to those files. I was just talking about things like video enhancements, for example. As far as I know, all the video settings like the ratio, whether high def is on or off on the checkbox, as far as I know, that stuff's all the same, whether you're logged into your personal Zoom account or not. But I thought I got the impression from something Mike said that he meant that some